Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome. This is the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Joey, the Italian Stallion Murray, joined by Russ, the Idea Guy Morgan. Russ, you know it's a new day, so I got a funny story.
You always have funny stories, Stallion. What you got?
All right. So I had a girl call in today, just as sweet as she could be, and she said, okay, I saw this logo, this Wealth Without Wall Street. It intrigued me. So I've already got my Wall Street advisor over here, and I'm just looking to invest some other money with you. So tell me what you guys can do for me.
So she's looking for something else. Like she's like, okay, got this guy. I probably need to diversify some more.
Well, of course, I said that was my first question. Like, well, if he's doing such a great job for you, I mean, why don't you just give him the rest of your money to babysit?
You didn't tell her that he could. Did you call him a money babysitter?
I did. I actually did. But I did say, you know, what we do at Wealth Without Wall Street is a participatory sport. Right? You've got to be engaged in the process. You have to be willing to be educated. We've got business owners who are actively reducing their tax liability. Guess what? You can't do that by just sitting on the sidelines. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be actively documenting things properly, right? We got people that are enhancing their cash flow. They're increasing their cash flow. And they're also over here turning passive income in later years. Again, none of that's going to happen just by sitting on your hands.
You really can't. You can't get the maximum anything with the minimum effort. Never going to happen.
But you know what's so cool? We have Caleb Guilliams in the studio today. And his book, The And Asset, has just hit the market. How exciting, because in light of that story, we're talking about exactly what we've been talking about. Taking life insurance policies that are created for cash value and being able to do both, right? Not just cash, not just, let's say, the piece of real estate or your business or whatever, but both at the same time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I just love the fact that we've got to watch Caleb grow up literally before us. I mean, when we first met him 3 years ago, he was 19 years old. It's crazy to think of him now as like a veteran in our industry. But I mean, with 3 years experience, this guy is really doing cutting edge stuff. And we've got to just be a part of it and help mentor him and help be a part of, the different things that he's doing. And I love the fact that he's written a book. He's sharing his story, which is going to help lots of other millennials out there who are really passionate about growing something, but do it in a way that they understand how money actually can help and be a benefit to them. And the passive income tools, the and asset, as we talk about on this podcast a lot, is going to be revealed in his book. And so if you stick around with us to the end, we're actually going to give you an option to be able to get the book for free, which I think you're going to love.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump straight into the interview here with Caleb Guilliams.
Welcome in, Caleb. Thanks for dropping in.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here.
Joey, we have first. I mean, I know this is like, we're still really new into the show.
Sure.
Less than a year. But it's amazing how many firsts we have, and this has to be the youngest guest that we've had on the podcast.
By far. Yeah, but at the same time, you would be shocked by the amount of knowledge that Caleb has at just the ripe old age of 22.
I just try to think of what were you doing at age 22? And I'm doubtful it was writing books and traveling the country, speaking to people, and now on a podcast. So Caleb, give me some background. How in the world did you get to where you are in such a short period of time? Because this is like your fourth year. So as an
I'm just trying to bring down the age in the studio, all the wisdom, all the gray hairs.
The average is coming much lower now.
So first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. You guys have an amazing podcast, and it's a true pleasure to be on here. And the cool thing is, Russ, you're a big part of my story, and Joey, just is coming along for the ride.
I'll just be over here if anybody needs me.
But yeah, a little bit about my background is was homeschooled, oldest of 6 kids, family parented me well, but didn't really teach me much about money. And then at the age of 15, I gutted chickens, first job, and got paid $1 per chicken.
$1 per chicken, right?
Yeah. So at the age of 15, I'm raking in the dough and making some money, and I hated spending money. So I read this book, Richest Man in Babylon.
Great book.
And I just started thinking like...
Yeah, we need to do a review on that, by the way. We need to remember. Okay,
like I just started thinking like, man, this whole money thing is fascinating. I'm like, what if like the way that we think about our money and the way that we act, like it can truly set someone's life radically different. So at the age of 15, I started like researching, learning, reading about stocks, options, real estate, and just became fascinated with how money works. Started working at a bank at 17.
How is that, by the way? I just got to know the people's faces when they come into your office and you're 17.
Well, I got a job behind the teller line at 17.
Gotcha.
And 2 things you got to know about me is I was 5 foot when I got my license, and yeah, I look young now. I looked like I was 12.
Yeah.
So, but here's the crazy thing about the teller line. So I learned how to talk to people. I also learned somewhat how banking works. And I learned the power of networking. And I know you guys have talked a lot about networking and the importance of it.
Right.
I think someone's noted for saying that like your net worth is in your network. So I started like talking to people and realizing the power of relationship building. And so at the age of 18, I got offered a ton of jobs. I've always been passionate about how money works. And so I went to the CEO of our bank. It was a small community bank in Wisconsin, and just asked him like, I don't care about money right now. I just want to learn. And can I work in the investment department? And so that's when I started working in the investment department at 18. So I can say I have 4 years of experience, but it's a little misleading.
But there's a key thing you just mentioned there is that you don't care about money.
Right.
You just want the experience. So really, we've talked about the value of education on this podcast.
Yep.
And that's what I hear you saying is, man, I paid for my education and maybe earning less than I would have maybe been offered. And there's so much wisdom in that.
But you started at the bank. So are you working full time? Because I know you're going to college at this point, right?
So yeah, part of the benefit of being homeschooled was I worked Mondays and Fridays, starting off at the bank, started taking some college classes. And then I ended up graduating college in 3 years because in high school, I took some college classes. And at college, I also worked kind of full time at the bank. So I did. I was busy in college.
The best college plan here. I just want, as you're listening to this and you have children, the best college plan is to get them to do it in 3 years.
That's no doubt.
There's some serious savings.
How can I save money on paying for my kids' college? Make it 3 years instead of 4.
Or 5.
Or 5.
Or 6. Or 7. Right? I mean, hey, that's a great start. So you're 18 years old. You're working as an advisor.
As an assistant. So okay. I thought I arrived.
An assistant to the advisor.
Yeah.
Assistant to the advisor.
And then at the age of 19, that's when my life got super crazy because the guy that was running our investment department at the time took a different job, and they were crazy enough to let a 19-year-old step into the corner office of a bank and take over a temporary role that lasted 2.5 years.
So when somebody walks in, they see you, they're like, where's your dad?
They come in for an annual review, and they're like, there's like this 10-minute of terror. They're like, is this for real? Like, is this for real right now?
Yeah, like they're looking for the hidden camera. I'm getting punked right now.
I learned some valuable things. The more I talk, the less credibility I have. So I learned to ask good questions, take notes, and try not to say a word. And it was a rough couple months, but guys, I would not be standing here in front of you guys right now if I wasn't given that opportunity. And I'm incredibly grateful for it.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, I remember the terror at being like 28 and going out and trying to call on people. Yet you're doing that like 9 years earlier.
Right.
The experience that you've had. So clearly you mentioned all these things that you were studying, and part of our podcast, as you know, you listen the people listening right now are entrepreneurs. who are looking for ways to increase cash flow, enhance savings, and go out and create passive income. And those aren't things that are foreign to you. You've been doing a lot of research on those.
Well, this is one of the things that I like to share about my story is part of when I first started the journey, I was reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Right.
And he dedicates like 20 years of his life to learning from the experts. So one of the things that makes my story kind of unique is that I was like, okay, I'm going to not worry about making money these first couple of years, and I'm going to try to work and learn from the best. So Russ, that's how I met you. Because I'm learning some banking strategies, I'm learning ways to help my clients take more control of their money. And I found you like that. You gave a talk at a think tank, and I just like a creeper called you, and I think like 15 minutes in, I think like 5 minutes in, because you're like I have 15 minutes, and 5 minutes in, I'm like I'm gonna ask this guy if I can stay at his house because I can learn a ton. And when you're 19 years old and look like you're 12, you're not a threat. And I use that on a couple people, but the reality is I have learned from people like you for 2-3 years. And so yeah, at 22, I feel like I'm 45 because I have the experience, and so that kind of set up the stage of kind of like what this book's all about. My book's all about the things that I've learned, the principles as it relates to money. And the reality is we are our greatest asset. You know, and our ability to think and add value to the world is our greatest asset. Now you guys are showing people how to create other assets and create cash flow, and that's great. But we have to like think about how to best utilize that and invest in ourselves. And this book is like trying to lay down the foundation of what I've learned and how someone can take full control and responsibility of their life.
Well, so I want to jump into the book. So there's 3 main points that you're getting across, and that's efficiency, that's compounding, and control.
Correct.
So let's talk about efficiency. Break that down for me. How do you see efficiency playing out?
So I kind of intro the book by the wealth equation. You're all familiar with, and I'm here for like a week, and I'm trying to get the all down.
That's a good effort. I mean, I know you called Joey a second ago the Italian stallion.
The Italian stallion.
With the long eye. We go with the short eye around here, okay? Italian.
Okay, so Albert Einstein's noted for this equation E = mc squared.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, no one gets super excited about efficiency. But that E stands for efficiency. What does efficiency really mean at its finest? We're trying to minimize losses. We're trying to maximize our gain. We're trying to maximize our control that we have. And so I'm just trying to lay down the foundation of efficiency is all about finding money that you're currently losing. It's about maximizing the ultimate gains and taking control. And when you have all 3 of those in your life, you're being the most efficient.
Well, I mean, we've got to be searching for efficiency. We just got back from a trip, and we were searching for ways to be more efficient in our taxes. Right. That was a trip that we took together, and I think if you're not searching, then you're giving up something. You're foregoing the opportunity of what that money would be for.
Well, right. And I even just had a meeting recently, and I asked the person on the other line. I said, "Can you afford to have your money being inefficient?"
That's awesome.
Because if you are at the point where you really don't care about efficiency, you will continue to think like people that do not want to be wealthy. They will continue to just survive, right? But if you're really concerned about efficiency, that means you're trying to think differently. You're trying to obtain wealth.
Right.
And so I 100% agree with this idea of efficiency.
And Warren Buffett has 2 rules to investing. And I know this is a Wealth Without Wall Street, but losing money is a bad idea. And he's noted for saying losing money is a terrible thing, and don't lose money. Okay.
Right.
And so the 4 areas that I'm like giving an example with inefficiencies are people are losing it. People are losing it to fees, taxes. They're using it. And I'm just trying to give examples in the book that that people are losing money that they don't even know that they're losing.
And it is amazing how much money goes through our hands. I mean, just take out your credit card statement every once in a while and look through the line items. And I guarantee you there's 2 or 3 things that you signed up for that you no longer use, but you're still paying for. Like we signed up for Amazon Prime, and at some point one of my kids wanted to watch a movie off like HBO or something. Yeah. So, I was like, I'll do the free 30-day trial on that thing.
Yep.
Yeah, 6 years later, we don't watch we don't watch HBO on Amazon Prime
That
anymore.
video cost you like $300.
It's crazy, but yeah, I mean, you've got to be looking for them, otherwise they'll happen.
Yeah, and so speak to the idea of control. What do you mean by? I mean, obviously everybody knows what the word control is, but what are you referring to?
Right. So I really lay down and we talk about efficiency, we talk about the importance of growth, but very few people other than you guys are talking about the importance of control in your life. Okay? And so really control is, and I kind of break it down in short term and long term. Like we have things like our taxes, when we just went and learned from some tax attorneys, and we can control some tax situations. And that can change your life, and that can be a long-term thing, but also controlling how you use your money today. And so I open up in this chapter that our greatest financial need is use of money. Think about that. We spend more money than we save. And if by control, we can start controlling how we spend that money, we can start controlling our short-term and long-term needs.
Well, and this goes into, I have meeting after meeting after meeting when people are looking at their money. Mm-hmm. And they're seeing how much money they make. They're making $100,000, $500,000, $1 million. And then we start looking at the amount of money being saved, and it's so small. And then where they start breaking up those accounts, right? Because we're taught to diversify, right? That's a term that the investment world will give you. But going back to Warren Buffett, who you mentioned a second ago, Warren Buffett would tell you diversification is a bad thing, right? You're diversifying your knowledge. And people do that with when they are putting money in different accounts, and so they really aren't controlling it.
Right.
They're really giving up access to it. And I'm sitting here looking at the water that you have in your cup there.
Right.
If you came back next year to visit with us and that cup was still sitting there with that water in it, would you take a sip?
Absolutely not.
No. But our money has to be in motion for us to get access to it. Is that what you're speaking to controlling access?
Right. And you know what example I give is I give banks. Banks are the most profitable institution in the world because they control our money better than we do. Think about it. They understand how to get money to flow to them. They understand that liquidity is key, so people come into their bank when they have opportunity. They understand that collateral is key, so they're not really taking risk with our money. They're taking advantage of leverage, and ultimately we talk about velocity, getting money to start flowing. The banking institutions are an incredible system, and instead of saying banks are evil, like why don't we learn those systems and have it apply to our life?
So that kind of leads us into your third point in the book, which is compounding. And I know that whole controlling compounding concept, it kind of fits together. Help us understand how you're using compounding with your clients.
So Albert Einstein is noted for saying that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And a lot of times we shut it off there. But what he says after that is, he who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. The sad reality is very few people are earning lifetime compound interest. Okay. And because whenever we pay an unnecessary tax, now or in the future, whenever we pay an unnecessary fee, now or in the future, whenever we use our money, think about it. People are saving up their money to use it someday. We're creating plans today that will never get lifetime compound interest. So I just talk about the power, and then I literally kind of shatter people's dreams and be like, the sad reality is you're not getting it. But the cool thing about this book is I'm desperately trying to share with people how they can not only be more efficient with their money, how they can take more control over their money, and ultimately how they can get lifetime compound interest tax-free without fees, and ultimately without use, killing it.
So I'm sitting there, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh, great. I'm probably not being that great efficient with my money.
Right.
And not all of my money is in my control, and I'm definitely not compounding because you just peed in my cereal on that one. So
last time I'll be asked to get on the podcast.
What am I to do?
So yeah, I'm so glad that you kind of mentioned that, because at the end of the day, I didn't write this book to kind of say your plan sucks. Like I want to give 3 kind of foundational beliefs, and then share with people what I think is the very best strategy on how to utilize their money. So we talk about the controlled compounding strategy. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's essentially a way to start saving money where you can get your dollars to grow the rest of your life. uninterrupted compounding. And that means it's compounding without interruptions. But since our greatest financial need is using our money, show people how the most efficient way to use their money, to whether it's to buy cars, whether it's to invest in their businesses, whether it's to buy assets. I mean, you guys talk a lot on your podcast about acquiring assets that produce cash flow. How we buy those assets matter. And so the controlled compounding strategy is literally the most efficient way to save for the future and spend in the present. And I kind of share those philosophy, and then share the master account and how someone can apply that to their life.
It's really kind of the best of both worlds. That, I mean, the common thing we hear all the time, but also I'm sure that you do, is this is too good to be true. Like, how can you do both at the same exact time?
And Russ's favorite line to too good to be true?
Well, I mean, if it looked really, really bad, would you really want to do it?
Would you be interested to learn more?
And just think about it this way. I mean, we sat in and learned from some tax attorneys, and the people that know what they're doing are paying, are winning. And the people that don't know what they're doing are losing. And so there's people that are doing these strategies. I mean, all three of us are doing these strategies. I'm just trying to write about it so that more people can figure it out and apply it to their life.
Well, let me ask you this. You may not have had this in mind when you did, but is there any sort of application for the millennial generation specifically, or is it just everybody? I mean, I feel like that's a huge need. I
mean, we have a savings crisis on our hands, and the millennials, we have a hard time saving because we're getting through college and we have a bunch of debt. And wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to save money and pay off debt at the same time? And so that's one area that you can apply to your life. But the reality is this: every single person listening to this podcast has a need for use of money, whether it's now or in the future. And so efficiency and how you use that money truly, truly matters.
Well, and we meet people all the time that listen to our podcast and say, well, this seems great. I wish I was Caleb's age. I wish I was starting this and I was 22 years old. And of course, if we had 60, 70, 80 years of road ahead of us, then we could see all sort of compounding on that money. But you've done the research.
Right.
You figured it out that it works for somebody who's in their 60s
100%,
and 70s.
100%.
So at the end of the day, I mean, the picture when somebody's implementing this system, you're writing about it, we're talking about it virtually every day. How do you see it working out success-wise? What does that look like for that person?
That's a good question. So essentially, where people come into our offices and want to apply strategies at different scenarios, right? The three things that we're really looking at is what your cash flow is, where your assets are, where you can efficiently put that money, and how you can effectively use that throughout your life. I read about at the end of the book, we talk about the ideal account. We lay out principles and benefits to what you should be thinking about your money. And the reality is, when you structure overfunded whole life insurance the best way, it's literally the very best way to save money and use it throughout your life. Now, the reason I wrote the book and talked about these principles is we're always taught that life insurance is a terrible place to put your money. But the reality is, when you set it up and use it properly, it is the very best place to save and use money. And so I talk about the controlled compounding strategy, and then it's like, okay, this is great in theory, but how do you apply it to your life? You have to get as much money flowing to your control, saving it for the future, and start using it the most effectively and efficiently throughout your life. The reality is, the best way to do that is to structure overfunded whole life insurance. And so in my process, I've really learned that this is a powerful tool, but we all know that if it's not used and thought about properly, it's just like everything else. It's not truly going to transform your life.
Right. Like, you can have the greatest golf clubs in the world and still play like Russ. I mean,
well,
it's not going to help Russ at the end of the day. So,
right. And the ping pong paddle analogy can be for another day.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. My ego is shattered from yesterday. I got just beat down by Caleb in a game of ping pong. Now, I will say that typically we play one game and we're done, but he had some sort of strategy. It was like a best 3 out of 5 kind of deal. So he wore me down. It was more of a, age thing.
I'm all about the comebacks. I'm all about the comebacks.
Well, is that why your arm's in a sling today, Russ? I just assumed you fell downstairs or something.
That was my ego in a sling. But so Caleb, the people listening to this
Yep.
are definitely very familiar with life insurance. They know that the goal is not life insurance. It's the
Right.
old saying of, people don't buy drill bits for drill bits. They buy the drill bit to get the hole.
Right.
And the life insurance that they're buying is really to get the benefits, the control, the compounding,
Yep.
the efficiency of money. We're very familiar with that. Give me an example, though, of somebody that's using this that you've dealt with, because you're working with people all over the country,
Right.
just like we are. This isn't something that you're just talking to your other 22-year-old friends, because at the end of the day, I'm assuming that's not really
right. That's not my
clients.
ideal client. I'll actually in the book I use myself as an example, and really it's the chapters, and they're sub chapters. It's when it makes a difference and when it makes sense, really. And so in the process of making this book, Russ, I'm using this strategy to finance my book, and because of the process of making a book, that's investing in my business. And so my dollar is going to earn in one place and also going to help me create an opportunity. But where my mindset truly changed is when I started this system on myself at 19 years old. I'm flying to Guatemala. I'm using my system, like the controlled compounding strategy, to save money and finance a missions trip. And I'm like in the air flying to Guatemala, and I'm like, this is insane. My money is growing while I'm overseas helping kids. And it's like, why wait till retirement to start traveling and making a difference? And so I'm a big numbers guy. And at our firm, we are teaching people, like, don't use the strategy and go buy liabilities and expenses. You're not going to be wealthy buying a car doing this, but it's the most efficient way to buy that car. And so we're trying to get people to think about, ultimately, my mission statement in writing this book is to help people see and reach their highest potential. And the reality is people are not able to reach their God-given potential because of money. And wouldn't it be great to cut that excuse out of the why we can't?
It's standing in the way, right?
Correct.
It's a huge hurdle. It has a lot of implications. That's why we're passionate about doing this podcast and getting these truths out there. Other people are not learning from Wall Street. They've learned from Wall Street, and we're having to kind of turn the tables a little bit here. So,
but just to answer your quick question, I've had clients that use this concept to buy engagement rings, to real estate, to flipping cows. It's really fun. I mean, we get to do some amazing things throughout the day and work with some incredible people.
We've been working on the flipping cows part too, haven't we, Joey?
Still working, yes.
Still working on it. Well, I mean, in Wisconsin, you get an opportunity to do, multiple flipping cows. You can flip them and buy them and sell them. Well, Caleb, this is something that I hope all our listeners will take many things from. One of the last statements you said is that people aren't reaching their God-given potential because of money. And that is huge. And if you take anything from listening to this podcast today, is that you have an opportunity ahead of you. And there's so many things that we can do if we look for those efficiencies, if we take control over our finances and we watch our money compound, then we don't have to worry about where we're going to be. So, Caleb, thank you for dropping in and sharing some knowledge with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.